Okay, let me. Okay, we are live right now. So hi everyone. We are here from the Círculo Lovecraftiano Aurora, Mexico, and we are very delighted to have right now Andras Molnar from Hungary Lovecraft Society. So we are very excited. We have here Rene too from Germany, and well, other people like Hiru from Colombia. And well, we invite you to comment in the Facebook Live any question that you have from Andres Molnar. So, hi Andres, how are you? Could you introduce yourself, please, for us?
Okay, hello. Well, I'm a little bit drowsy because it's late in Hungary right now. You said that maybe listeners may have questions while I talk. Is there any surface where I can see any prospective questions, or will you transfer them to me?
Yeah, we will. I will translate them for
Okay.
you.
All right
Andreas,
then.
what time is it there right now?
Sorry?
What time
It's
is it?
10 p.m. It's 10 p.m.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay. So, the first question: the history of your group. Why Lovecraft in Hungary?
well, in a sense, the history of our group is quite simple and straightforward. So, first of all, some of us, the members of the group, knew each other earlier on various by various reasons, and before our society was formed officially in 2018, we already had made some initiations. We organized various programs, especially the president of our society, Josef, who is actually the mastermind and the spirit of this whole movement or this whole society. So it is mostly his untiring spirit that makes this thing working. But on one occasion, Josef and I had a conversation, and I suppose he had a similar conversation with other guys, and he asked me and I suppose others whether we see any fantasy, any promise in founding a society officially, instead of just we're a couple of guys who love Lovecraft and do various things to promote his work. And our answer was affirmative. And after not too short, but perhaps not too long, official and bureaucratic obstacles, our society was formed and is alive and well today. So this is basically the story
Thank you,
of
Andres.
the society itself, but of course there were and there are various other initiations and other efforts that concern Lovecraft, but which are not strictly connected to our society.
Okay, thank you. So it's like a bunch of friends who loves horror literature, especially Lovecraft. We saw your page, your web page, and you had like academical works too. So it's very interesting. So Phoenix has a question for you. So Phoenix.
Hi, Andres. Thank you
Hi.
for being here today with us. How did you start in the Lovecraft world? Were you a kid and suddenly you came across a book of Lovecraft or something like that? Somebody told you to start reading Lovecraft? Have you always read
So,
horror?
well, My first contact with Lovecraft was in high school when a friend of mine lent to me one of his books. So just a moment. This is it, actually. So actually the cover has nothing to do with Lovecraft's work, but the content of the book is very, very precious. And the quality of the translation is very good. So basically, Lovecraft came to appear in Hungary after the transition, after our leaving behind communism and becoming a free market society, and publishers were found. And well, let's be honest, Lovecraft was Lovecraft was free to go, free to translate. There weren't any inheritors, so publishers didn't have to pay for his works. And this book is one of the products, and I read it when I attended high school in the second half of the 1990s. And well, it was really atmospheric and brooding, so it really did have an effect on me. But strangely, that was all for a while. So I didn't feel the need to read more. And a couple of years later, when I was already in university, a friend of mine lent me The Lurker at the Threshold. It was also translated into Hungarian, which is actually not Lovecraft's work, but it's a short novel of August Derleth. But somehow I loved it, and I really reread it, and then I started to discover Lovecraft's own work. And well, it was love at, well, not the first but the second sight, and then I was totally into Lovecraft. I also loved it that there is a 3-volume semi collection of Lovecraft's work, because it does not contain the totality of Lovecraft, but much of what is important to read from Lovecraft. And the first volume had a short introduction, which introduced Lovecraft's worldview and perspective. And I found it very intriguing that horror fiction, so to say popular fiction, can have a depth, is open for interpretation, and it's not just something that you read in your empty hours or something like that, but it can be considered as serious literature. And this attracted me all the more. And well, that's when I became really into Lovecraft, and then began to read his biography and various secondary literature. That's the story that's the sketch of the story of my engagement with Lovecraft.
Thank you very much, Andres.
Thank you. So you got curious about even Lovecraft philosophy, because yes, it's kind of deeper. So Ernesto has a question for you, Ernesto.
How you doing, Andreas? Mexico is so very far away from Hungary. I mean, we don't know anything about Hungary. It's too far. So I want to ask you some questions.
Okay.
The first one is personal. Which one is your favorite work of Lovecraft and why? And the second question would be, what other authors of horror literature are important in Hungary right now?
You mean by Hungarian authors or authors from abroad? Okay.
Both.
Well, personally, it's hard to say, because, I think I am very conservative in that my all-time favorite is possibly The Color Out of Space. It's the purest cosmic horror that Lovecraft has ever created. But I also love other stories for various reasons. Like, I made a Christmas tradition that every year on Christmas I read and reread The Case of Charles Dexter Ward. In a publication in a collection of short stories from the early Lovecraft circle. I translated The Mound, which was a ghostwriting by Lovecraft, but it's basically, it can be considered as Lovecraft's very own work because it contains much of Lovecraft's thought. And I like that story as well for personal reasons, and it's a really good story in with respect to world building. Well, as to significant authors in horror fiction in Hungary. Well, when we talk about Hungarian publications, since the transition in 1989, 1990, the horror author par excellence was for a long time Stephen King. It was actually, he was actually published by a quite serious publisher in Hungary. So Stephen King got a really good marketing and had really good sales. And I think almost everything by him has been published so far in Hungarian. Also, some books by Clive Barker were published. I'm not really aware of how much of his oeuvre was published. Lovecraft, the first appearance in Hungary by Lovecraft was in a magazine still in the 1980s, so before the transition. There is a magazine with a legendary past entitled Galactica, which was founded sometime in, I think, the 1970s or 1980s. I hope my memory does not fail me. And well, this magazine had a significant role in disseminating classics and then contemporaries of science fiction, either from the Western world or from Eastern Europe and the Soviet bloc, which actually did produce some significant authors, especially in science fiction. After the first attempts and the first tentative selections by Lovecraft, it was in the 2000s, beginning with, I think, 2003, that this aforementioned 3-volume total edition was published by a serious publisher. And where up to as yet, it is this 3-volume publication that counts as the canonized Lovecraft edition, so to say. So I think it is this edition which played a significant role in the Hungarian Lovecraft reception after earlier attempts. Speaking of Hungarian authors, well, I think it is perhaps not too I think we can say that the magazine entitled Black Ether, here is one copy of it. It was founded still before our society was founded and before it was officially registered. But in fact, this is the work of our president, Józsi. It has, I think, six issues, but it had a significant role in collecting Lovecraft-inspired works in Hungary. Of course, this is an amateur edition, but when it was issued, it had a significant role in Lovecraft-inspired Hungarian publications. Speaking of authors, there are a couple of weird authors in Hungary. We can say that they are inspired by Lovecraft, but this is a part of the truth, because these authors are quite well-versed in weird fiction aside from Lovecraft. So Lovecraft is one source of inspirations, but I think we can say that these authors have a much broader range and a much broader range of interests. So they had various authors and various works to be inspired of. But we have our Attila Veres with his two stories. With his two books up to now. The first one appeared in 2017. Odakint sötétebb, it translates as something like it's darker outside. It's a novel. It starts as a cosmic horror, but in fact it ends as something more than a cosmic horror. And I don't really want to spoil it, but it has quite a great surprise at about the last 50 pages or so. So it has a cosmic scope, but it's something beyond cosmic horror. The second volume, Éjféli iskolák, Midnight Schools, it might be translated. So it's a story of it's a collection of short stories, and well, it's much more a collection of horror stories. So these stories basically can be called horror.
Sorry, Attila Veres. Well, for us, is Attila Veres.
Yes.
Yeah, his work from 2017, Odakint. Well, it's darker outside.
Yes.
For us. And yes, we had the chance to read The Time Remaining, his tale for the Belancourt series, and it's very, very interesting tale. I mean, we were very delighted with the well.
It was a very interesting experience to read this short story.
Yeah,
and I wonder if these horror stories in contemporary authors like Attila Veres or Attilas Veres, there are some kind of booming work of a group of artists, a group of writers writing horror right now in Hungary.
Yeah, like a group of horror writers.
Like a movement, a literary movement right now.
I don't know if we may call it a movement, but I think it can fairly be stated that there is an upsurge in contemporary horror fiction in Hungary. So somehow it looks like it's about my generation, so people who were still born before the transition, but actually grew actually became adults after the transition in Hungary as a market society, in Hungary as a democracy, or a strangely working democracy, and people who already have the command of English and access to Western authors and access to world literature, and who were inspired by these sources, either genre fiction or high literature, and could infuse these impressions into their own work and come up with their own ideas. So I think that, yeah, well, right now it's something like a boom in Hungarian horror fictions, and well, speculative fiction in general, because I don't think we can narrow this to horror fiction. It's more booming in speculative fiction in general, because various fantasy and science fiction authors and anything in between also are on the rise.
Okay, thank you. Yes, because we were talking about this tale in a special that I think that Attila, he, how do you say, he has an horror environment in his tales, because in our Mexico or in Latin America, we our writers, they're specialized in fantasy or speculative fiction, and it's called like more surrealism. And at the beginning, we were reading this tale, and especially this tale because we don't have any other. We were like, oh, it's kind of eerie, it's kind of weird, but then it was horror. I mean, it was true horror, and we were like, oh, we wanted some Mexican writers to write like that, because this was very psychological for us. So I mean, we wonder if you have a lot of other horror authors that you can name for
Yes,
us.
of course. Of course, we have Balázs Farkas, who is to mention. I think I sent something from him as well, because as far as I know, he also has an English publication. I don't know which story, because well, I'm ashamed to admit, but I didn't read everybody that I talk about, but of course this doesn't lessen their merit in any way. I think Lilla Erdei is also to be named. She's a female author, and her work is also widely acknowledged or acknowledged in circles in Hungarian speculative fiction and weird fiction or horror fiction. We have a bizarro writer called Zoltán Komor. Well, he writes bizarro. It's a very crazy subgenre in speculative fiction, but he has sort of cult as well. Who did I want to talk about? Oh, okay. I would like to mention Anita Moskát, especially because I've read her novel. This is her most recent novel. It appeared in 2019, and well, her work is bordered between, or is stranded somewhere between fantasy and weird fiction. So it's not something to be easily classified, but I think it does have certain weird vibes. It's not really Lovecraftian, but it is weird, and it has a very strong psychological side as well, in the sense that she has a very that she's very strong in character building. I think René seems to have a couple of questions, because from time to time his questions pop up in the bubbles below.
Yeah. In fact, well, before Renee, we wanted to tell you that, well, greetings to Joela Oviedo, Hector Muñoz, and Kelly Goodman, from greetings from Peru. And yes, Renee. Here is the question. Hello, Andres. A few minutes ago, Okay, you talked about a boom of horror stories, and I would like to ask if there are any institutions who support this boom, maybe with some kind of a festival, which will unfortunately on pause now, a book fair, or literary competitions. If yes, well, can you say?
Uh, well, yes. Hungary has an annual book fair, and from time to time, authors of speculative fiction also appear there, and they also have a booth or something like that, and there is a chance to dedicate, to have books dedicated or signed. Um, so yeah, the book fair, the Hungarian book fair is a general literary event, but speculative fiction also has a place in it. On the other hand, from 2017, there is an annual, it's a sort of a conference or roundtable talk entitled Világok találkozása. It means meeting of worlds, but it is also a play on language in Hungarian, because if you abbreviate these words and add the first two letters of both words, then it becomes vita, which means debate or discussion. So this is an annual session of roundtable talks concerning various events in Hungarian and in international speculative fiction. It's basically a whole day of roundtable talks. Basically, there are, I think, 5 such talks in various topics, be it a recent publication, recent trends, questions that are trending in speculative fiction and such. Actually, if we narrow the question to Lovecraft, in 2029, we organized with our society the first national H.P. Lovecraft meeting, which also consisted of various lectures and generally sort of meeting place for Hungarian Lovecraft fans, where you had the chance to have conversation on Lovecraft and anything else with a good coffee or a good beer. It was actually a very successful occasion. I think, of course, well, COVID fucked it up for 2010, 2020. So right now it is still a one-time event, but we are making efforts to make it an annual event as well. Of course, we'll see how much the epidemic will allow us this to happen. I think you also mentioned in your questionnaire that you sent to me via email whether we have awards in Hungary, and I think this relates to the question that you just transferred to me. There are 2 awards that I can recall right now. Okay, let me admit, I'm not really, personally, I'm not really interested in awards. Generally, I don't really pay attention to how much a piece of work was awarded. Generally, personally, I like to delve in the underground of fiction and try to uncover hidden gems. And well, occasionally I find one. This is not what always happens, but sometimes it does. So we have an award called the Zsoldos Péter Award. Zsoldos Péter was a Hungarian author in science fiction, and he died in 1997, and an award was named after that. This award is organized and given by a society in that relates to Hungarian speculative fiction. It's basically, if I'm not mistaken, focused on science fiction. We have another award which was recently funded. It actually relates to the Világok Találkozása event series because it was founded by its organizers. It's called the Hexa Award, and it's actually the award is actually a glass cube. It's hexa. It's a hexameter, a cube. The award is given to one person annually who is considered to have done much for the enhancement of speculative fiction in Hungary, be it a translator, a publisher, lecturer, or anybody who is considered to have done much for speculative fiction in Hungary. And this award is awarded by a secret vote from the participants of that given year's roundtable talks.
I have another question, Andreas. I wanted to ask you, you know, most of the horror works are from, the most known are from the United States and from England. You know, that's the long tradition. And we don't know many outside of it. We know some from Latin America because we live in this continent. But I would like to ask you about the influence of the East. I'm talking about like Russians like Valery Bruisov, like Anna Starobenitz, and some, you know, a writer that we like is from Poland and Ukraine, Stefan Grabinski. And I would like to ask you about the influence of the Eastern writers on Hungary.
Okay.
Is there any influence at all? Do you know them?
Weird or horror authors in Hungary. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I wanted to know if you have influence from the Russian writers, from the Ukrainian, from the East, or just influence from England and the United States as always.
No, actually, Eastern Europe, as far as I know, but I'm not that keen on that. Eastern Europe does, in fact, have a tradition in the absurd or in the grotesque, like Stefan Grabinski you mentioned, and from Russia, Leonid Andreev, for example. In Hungary, or Bruno Schulz from, I don't even know his nationality now, but he's also there. I think we can name Jorge Luis Borges.
Okay.
Borges, in this respect, I think he does have an influence on today's writers, or some of today's writers. But speaking about Central Europe and more narrowly Hungary, in the field of weird fiction or something similar to that, we have Géza Csát, who is basically considered that. Well, we can be proud to we are proud to say that Géza Csát was named as an influence by Thomas Ligotti in one of his interviews. Ligotti was asked to name 5 of authors that influenced him and are not well known. Or something like that was the question, and one of these authors he called was Géza Csát, so I'm very proud to have this. Well, I think he belongs to this absurd or grotesque tradition from the West. He lived in, I think, in the early 20th century, and he's considered as a classic in this respect. So I think it is him, and well, he is he is still read among authors who have a more bizarre taste. But I think I'm not a writer, and I cannot think with the head of other writers. But I think that writers in Hungarian weird fiction would agree with me in that it is advisable to be well versed in the classics as well, with respect to either, I don't know, plot construction or character building or various aspects of writings. I think you can always learn something from authors of, so to say, high fiction as well as genre fiction.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, you mentioned Ligotti. We love Thomas Ligotti and Ligotti.
Me too.
And yes, and when we were reading this tale from Attila, I mean, it was like when one of the dolls mentioned the vacuity and the loneliness and etc. It was like reading. I mean, it was like an influence from Ligotti for that. We wondered if Ligotti's reading is read a lot over there, and others authors like Jude Tullos, Clive Barker, and what about the another authors from the Lovecraft circle? For example, in Germany, René Tullos about Blackwood, his their favorite author. Here we love Barlow, and I think that it is the one who were lost in Mexico. This
that's Barlow,
Bierce.
yes.
Ambrose Bierce.
Ambrose
Oh.
Bierce for
Yeah,
us.
okay,
Very,
okay.
Yeah, so who are your Lovecraft circle author that you enjoy the most? Not There Let, another one.
Well, I think there's still much to do concerning the Lovecraft circle, either concerning authors who had an influence on Lovecraft but lived before him, like Bierce or Blackwood or Arthur Machen, or Lovecraft's contemporaries, and even those who came after Lovecraft. But I can say that various initiatives have been or have already been taken either in the amateur scene or professional scene. Like I have before me this trilogy. The title says Árnyak az időn túlról, which is a ripoff of the title, the Hungarian title of The Shadow Out of Time. Literally translated, it says shadows out of time. So the word shadow stands in plural in these titles. So this is a publication, an amateur publication made by amateur translators, including myself. It's not from our society, but some members of our society did collaborate. It's a collection of authors influenced or connected to Lovecraft in a temporal sequence. The first volume contained works from contemporaries of Lovecraft and disciples of Lovecraft. The second volume contained 20th century authors, about up to 1980, I think 1980 or 1990 was the line from these authors, and the third volume contains contemporaries. So this is one attempt at filling this hole in the reception of what you call the Lovecraft circle. Also, there is a magazine, an amateur magazine entitled Asylum, which actually means asylum, which from time to time publishes certain classics like Blackwood or Arthur Machen, and a volume from Arthur Machen has already been published. Oh, what a nice kitty. So a volume from Arthur Machen has already been published, and a second volume is in preparation, to my knowledge. And a professional publisher in speculative fiction also has a series that contains various classics in speculative fiction, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and various dark genres. So they already published collections of short stories from Montagu Rose James, Clark Ashton Smith, and at least one book has already appeared that also contains authors who had an influence on Lovecraft. So I can say that sporadic publications and have appeared, and initiatives have been taken, but of course there's still much to do. This is a country with a population of less than 10 million. Perhaps it's not the most profitable endeavor, but it's on the way.
Sorry.
Okay.
Just
I'm finished.
Yes, I wanted to tell you. So, how hard is to translate Lovecraft? Because I mean, it's very when you read it in English, it's very nutritious. It's very, I mean, the adjectives and everything. But I think that it's kind of difficult.
Well, I'm not sure I'm the best person to ask because, of course, I translated the Mound, but perhaps it doesn't contain the most Baroque sentences by Lovecraft. So, its text, its language is a bit more straightforward, I think, than some of the more ornamented Lovecraft texts. I don't really know. I wouldn't say that the Mound was easy to translate, but I think I could have had much more difficult Lovecraft texts. So I think I could get along with it fairly, and I hope that I managed to do it, because unfortunately, being an amateur, being engaged in amateur in the amateur scene, well, it's hard to get feedbacks from a professional editor, a professional lecturer, or a lecturer who checks your translation, because, well, I don't work for a professional publisher.
Talking about that, I wanted to ask you, well, it's basically two questions, because the first is, did you study something related to literature, or are you studying in this field of literature? And without getting political on my side, like, you are from my generation with a lot of changes in Eastern Europe, and maybe horror is basically something new for the universities dedicated to writing, because you have you were saying you don't care about awards, and actually there's one author, Imre Kremetz, from the only Nobel Prize from Hungary, but it's more drama. Most of the writers from Hungary are dramatic writers. Did horror, when it came, was a thing not taken seriously by people who like literature?
Well, concerning your first question, whether I studied anything connecting in connection with literature, I did actually. I do actually have a BA degree in American Studies, so that's something that I do have, and I attended a half-year-long course. It's not university, but it's an organized training. I had a half-year-long training in literary translation. So this is what I have with respect to literature. There are study groups and research groups concerning popular culture in Hungary. I think Pázmány Péter University in Budapest does have such a research group. I don't know if I can offer a general picture about how seriously horror fiction is taken in Hungary. Because I suppose that there are people, perhaps there are even literary scholars who don't take horror fiction seriously for various reasons, but I did not really encounter with such opinions, maybe because I'm not in contact with such people, but of course there may be people who don't care for horror fiction at all. But I think that especially in English and American studies, speculative fiction in general is on the rise, and there are various courses that can be picked and which concern various genres or subgenres in speculative fictions, and there are researchers whose topic concerns speculative fictions. There are also conferences organized with respect to popular culture, and which are which of course concern speculative literature as well. So there are institutional research spheres or research surfaces that take speculative fiction seriously. This is what I know about, so I think the picture is not bad at all.
Yes, here in America, it's the same. I mean, with prices, etc. Speculative fiction is not so well seen between professional authors, but here it is changing too. So, well, we talked about your circle, or the circle where you're a member, and we talked about the authors from there, and about the Lovecraft circle, and well, maybe in a personal motif, what do you think about Lovecraft actual pop culture? I mean, he is very popular right now, and there is a series. I don't know if you watch that series from HBO, the Lovecraft Country. So, what do you think that about the new authors? Not new authors. I mean, the authors who are changing the Lovecraftian tale.
You mean authors who reinterpret Lovecraft's motifs from various aspects? Well, I think, I did read the book Lovecraft Country. It was published, I think, in 2020. And I read it in autumn, and well, I did peek into the series, but well, I did not really like it, so I didn't watch it. I was satisfied with the book. Actually, I liked Lovecraft Country partly. Well, it's mostly well written, but I actually had the occasion to read some of the US Supreme Court decisions that it concerned concerning race questions. So, well, at least in that respect, it evoked some good memories for me. But okay, so it's so hard to follow all the publications concerning Lovecraft because he is being reinterpreted over and over, and well, I don't think I could even offer or sketch for myself a general picture on how and in what respects he's been reshaped or reinterpreted. Of course, one of the most significant and most trending reinterpretations concern Lovecraftian tales from the viewpoint of various marginalized groups, and Lovecraft Country is one of these. Of course, it takes place from the viewpoint of Black people, a Black family who have to experience everyday oppression, and well, basically the whole point of this novel or a series of novelettes is that okay, cosmic horror, but in fact, cosmic horror doesn't mean much for people who have to experience systematic oppression. Another story on this string is The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor Laval. From the point of view of women, there is The Dream Quest of Valid Bow by Keith Johnson, if I remember her name well. And there's also a story entitled, a book, a novel as far as I know, but it wasn't published in Hungary, entitled The Night Ocean, which, well, reflects on homosexuality. And it concerns Barlow's well-known yes, homosexuality, which actually led to his tragically early death because he committed suicide because he was blackmailed with his sexual orientation, and well, being homosexual in the 1950s wasn't a good thing or a fortunate thing. Well, what I so well, I wasn't really captured by these social reinterpretations of Lovecraft. I don't say these books are bad or these books are unnecessary or superfluous. Of course, they do have a role in sparking social discourse, in starting discourse about the situation of various groups concerning prejudices or anything like that. And why wouldn't authors in weird fiction take their role in it? It's part of literature to be creative and offer new ideas, and why wouldn't social commentary be part of it? But well, I think such stories have the significance of such stories is perhaps greater with respect to social commentary than horror fictions. I don't want to say that it's a bad thing or a good thing, but I think it is so because mostly these stories do not really renew conceptions in horror fiction. So I don't know if we speak about like Thomas Ligotti, for example, who reshaped cosmic horror, or Ramsey Campbell, who incorporated some Lovecraftian ideas into some of his stories, and is considered as a doyen, as a great old one of English weird fiction. But with respect to techniques and solutions, purely in weird fiction or in horror fiction, I don't think these stories will stay there for eternity. These are more things like let's speak about Lovecraft, let's speak about horror fiction from a point of view that hasn't been exposed before. But this is only the social commentary part, and well, there are various other aspects of reinterpretations of Lovecraft. I don't really know, because there are various anthologies that try to reconsider Lovecraft. I didn't really read much of these because I am in a constant delay in various new publications. So I just cannot keep up to date with everything.
Yes, we know that there are a lot of anthologies right now, and there are the ones from Dalto. We have another ones. We have excellent interviews with, for example, Leigh Barron, who is a very nice, very good writer, and John Langan. He has a very interesting novel, Lovecraftian novel, The Fisherman.
Sure.
Yes, and well, and we have, there are a lot of writers right now, and I think that what we agree with doing in all that there are a lot of right now a boom, and sometimes I think that the essence is cosmic horror. Just I mean, it is not just tentacles and stuff like that. It's the cosmic horror, and well. Almost for finishing this conversational, for you, who is the next horror master of horror literature?
Well, the problem is that. Okay. The problem is that horror fiction is also a very varied and multicolored genre or subgenre of speculative fiction. And well, basically, my love is with cosmic horror and this existential horror, which is notably represented by Ligotti, of course. Well, okay, why Ligotti? I don't know. I just love that nihilistic and nihilistic streak in his stories, and that well, how to say, anti-subject color of his stories that tries to deconstruct the notion of the human subject. But speaking of Ligotti, I also like very much, and well, this is already a bit far away from Lovecraftian horror, but I love John Paget's The Secret of Ventriloquism very much. It's a collection of short stories, and these stories have a very strong Ligottian essence there. That's one of that's a book that's very close to my heart.
Okay, sad horror, Morgan. Sad horror for everyone. Okay, thank you a lot, Andres, for joining us today. We are very delighted and grateful in order to be with us right now, because we know that it is kind of late over there. So I just want to how do you say agradecer?
Can I say something first? Oh, it's because I have this book a friend from over there sent me.
Oh, that's so nice to see.
Yes. So she's like a really famous contemporary writer, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us something about her?
I'm sorry to say, I didn't read anything from her. So she is widely acknowledged in Hungary and widely read, but unfortunately, I didn't read anything from him. Shame on me.
Yeah, no worry. It's not horror, right? It's just fiction.
No.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, well, thank you everyone, and thanks for watching us. And well, we hope that you can join us later, Andres. Next time you are totally invited.
So before we say farewell, I would like to express my gratitude, and I'd like to say thank you for all the patience that you displayed towards me, because sometimes I was a bit slow in answering. So really, thank you very much for your tolerance and your nicety.
Okay, thank you a lot. Don't disconnect. Sorry. We will just close.
Close the public session.
Yes. Bye.